I had to take on this role as a first generation child, this role of being this interpreter, this translator, this bridge between, having to translate to my parents. I think, started a little bit of my introversion, if you will.
Uh-huh.
And actually, like you said, use that as my power, use that to help me with my life now.
The muscle and exercise, like you kind of exercising your your introversion, or leaning maybe more into extroversion in Spanish. Do you think that it made you more confident as an introvert?
Oh, interesting question. More confident. It's a really great skill. I think that not a lot of people can do that. When I was first starting my business, I felt like I did have to sacrifice a lot of my introversion. I felt like it was...
Chris, I know that you're also working on your podcast now. It's the Beyond the Lights, right? I like the title. How do you find your journey podcasting as an introvert?
Oh my goodness. My introversion and my podcast and the podcast title, I think, go hand in hand. We need to sometimes just step away from learning or healing or doing learning Spanish. For me, it was sometimes just stopping the Duolingo app, stopping learning, and just going out to a party with Spanish people.
And just dance, right? Today's guest is Chris, a first-generation Peruvian-American born in Los Angeles and now living in Spain. Chris grew up as a translator and interpreter for his Peruvian parents long before he became a business coach, helping others build businesses without losing themselves. In this episode, Chris shares how he went from feeling like he had to sacrifice his introversion to becoming a Zumba instructor, stepping into leadership and building a life that lets him be fully himself. We talk about the power of just starting, living beyond learning and healing, and how sometimes stepping away from Duolingo into real life is the best language lesson there is. If you ever felt like you have to change who you are to succeed in English, life, or business, this one's for you. Hey, I'm Justina from Linguistic Adventurer, and this is Curious Introvert Journeys into English and Beyond, the podcast where people like us find our voice and connect through meaningful conversations. Being quiet or shy doesn't mean you can't speak English confidently, connect with others, or travel the world. In each episode, you'll hear inspiring stories from amazing guests from around the globe who've turned their quiet nature into a superpower, mastering English and finding themselves along the way. We're not fans of small talk. We love deep, authentic conversations, and that's exactly what you'll find on this show. I hope these stories help you embrace who you are while improving your English skills. So tune in and join me on this journey of language, culture, and connection, because when we speak, we make it count. Hello, Chris. Hola.
Hola. Yes. Hi, Justina. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to catch up and have you as a guest today and find out more about your journey as an introvert, because I have to be honest, I was surprised when you were like, yes, I'm an introvert. And it was a bit surprising, maybe even a shocker.
Well, it's definitely a layered question. So thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast. It's an honor. Thank you.
So, Chris, I know that you are born in Los Angeles, but now you live in Spain and you help people build businesses that align with their, I would say, personalities as well, or like what to do with their way. Can you tell us a bit more about what you do?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll start with how I moved to Spain. I moved to Spain back in 2018, which every time I say it, it's more and more and more years ago.
Yes.
And I moved here I was gonna do a 9-month scholarship program, and I ended up staying for the next 6 years of my life. That's where I actually started teaching languages back in 2018. The program was to be an English teacher in the public school system within Spain. And I was able to really get my hands-on experience with teaching English and having to also learn Spanish, right? And that duality, if you will. And it's funny that you mention it because it was for me, it was like I had to learn Spanish again,
Yes. Can you tell
because
us a little bit? Because I want to ask, was that move to Spain the start of your journey with Spanish, or did it start
oh,
before?
no, no. This is kind of a part 2 for me. Part 1 was when I was younger. My parents immigrated from Peru to America, and then I was born in America, shortly after they had arrived and assimilated, so their English was still a little bit rocky. So when I was able to, when I was a little bit older and I was able to speak and talk and read and write and comprehend, I had to take on this role as a first generation child, this role of being this interpreter, this translator, this bridge between, having to, translate to my parents my school field trip permission slip that we're going to the La Brea Tar Pits tomorrow at 9 a.m. and them having to sign that and me having to explain that. And so from a very young age, I think I had to, step into an adult role, which I think, started a little bit of my introversion, if you will.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you want to get into that now.
Yes, because maybe it's already tying to my next question, because I was actually wanted to know, when did you first realize that you might be introverted, and do you think that that shaped your learning journey in Spanish or English? You were also studying at school as your parents were immigrants. So can you tell us a little bit more?
Of course. Well, I think my introversion came from that young age where I had to kind of sit between these two languages that I was learning and also the cultures behind those languages, right? So in school, I remember always being shy and timid, but the smartest one in my class. And at home, I would also be really shy and timid with my parents because there was some sort of pressure I felt that I had to like step into this role even though I was a child.
Yeah.
And I think that's where my introversion began. I think there's also a little bit there was other things coming into play in terms of like my parents' type of parenting that also induced introversion, right?
Mhm.
Limiting what I can or can't do because, they were raised in Peru. And so being raised in America was very different. And so I think they were acting out of fear of not really understanding the culture. So putting those limit on who I was or who I was meant to be, if you will, I think started a little bit of that introversion in me at a young age. So it's very layered. There's a lot of complexity there. And I think since that age, I've always had to work on figuring out why that introversion is and what is actually like beneath all of that, right?
Yes, and
Therapy,
when you
for
say
example.
that, I'm thinking that's had a lot of a job, like for a kid to try to figure that out, right? You
Uh,
have different languages. You have the role of an interpreter, translator for your parents. Then you also have two cultures. Then you're trying to,
exactly.
make sense of your introversion, which also as children, in general, children are not self-aware. Like,
We're
oh,
not,
I
yeah,
feel this, therefore this is that, and it's like, no,
exactly. We're just surviving.
yeah. So it must have been challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously am speaking now, but at that age, like you said, I had no idea this was happening. I was just trying to make sure that I was all right, that I was, feeling safe in some way and trying to, survive, basically.
And did you find it
Yeah.
hard to accept it? If I can ask, like, that situation, it's kind of hard, but like, uh, were you a bit more? Because I don't know, I'm kind of thinking of from this perspective. Because I know I'm in my story, I felt like I'm kind of different from other kids. I'm not the
Mhm.
popular one, but then I always try to be kind of, okay, I like my alone time, being with my thoughts, going into books. So I think I kind of, as a kid, I tried to balance it out somehow, or like,
Uh,
let's say
I
explain without explaining, but just, be like, okay, I like alone time, so I just use it, I don't know, for drawing or reading books, whatever.
Yeah. I honestly, I remember using my introversion as an excuse to shut down and just like
Mhm.
protect my peace as much as I could. So I remember playing alone a lot at school. I had like 2 or 3 best friends at most, like elementary school. Yeah, so I don't know if I did quite a good job of balancing
Mhm. I'm
looking
not
back.
saying that I did. Maybe I was trying to trick
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
brain and like find
Yeah.
good in a situation because definitely it was
Yeah,
not
no,
easy.
absolutely. I think that we all, like, try to react in response. And, I mean, we're kids at that point, right? Like, we can't it's so interesting, like, that, we're put in this position as kids to answer to adult feelings and problems. Like, it's wild.
Yes. And did you, in that situation, did you deal with any stereotypes from school or parents specifically, or?
Oh, yeah, I think
Mhm.
well, I think in elementary specifically, I was like the school nerd, if you will, like
Mhm.
the timid one, the one that like aced all the exams, teacher's pet, all of these things. And I think that has to do with like my introversion in a way, right?
Mhm.
Because I remember even um, having there was a time where like I would eat lunch with my English teacher, for example,
Mhm.
in their classroom. I wouldn't go outside. Outside seemed very volatile.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So yeah.
Okay. So yeah, sounds challenging and difficult, but I can relate. Like it was not easy. But Chris, maybe we can turn a little bit around and actually talk about
Yeah,
good things of introversion because
absolutely.
it's not all bad, is it?
No,
Uh-huh.
no, no, it's not
So
all bad. So, yeah, I think, well, a lot of that, I mean, and just to your point, just like a lot of
mhm,
that I'm exploring 25 years into my life. Like at that time,
yes.
I didn't know a lot of that. So, through a lot of therapy and self work, I'm able to understand that. And actually, like you said, use that as my power, use that to help me with my life now. And, kind of part two of me learning Spanish was when I moved to Spain. And I think my introversion helped a little bit there too, because when I got here, I thought I was going to be able to speak to everyone. But European Spanish is a way, 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 way different than Latin American Spanish. It was a whole other, I feel like it was a whole other language. Like, I remember the first day, I was like looking at people and they were speaking to me, and I understood understood some of the words, but I wasn't able to understand like what they were trying to communicate to me.
Mhm,
So that was my like first big shock of
oh,
arriving.
okay. And do you think that something specifically helped your introversion, like to learn in general Spanish?
Yeah, well,
Maybe some aspect or
uh,
something. I don't
I
know.
think I think a good skill that introverts have is that we are very good observers and listeners. And so for me, I got into this situation or this mindset where I was like, okay, I really need to learn Spain Spanish fast because I need to survive. I need to go to groceries. I need to open a bank account. I need to look for an apartment. So I'm going to observe and listen to how people talk, how people communicate, what do they mean when they say something?
Mhm,
Because it wasn't always just like, learning the definition. There's connotations, there's cultural nuances. And so that did take a long time. I would say I wasn't really fully confident in my Spanish for like 7 months. It took me about 7 months to really just observe and listen and use those powerful superpowers of introversion to
mhm.
learn Spanish again.
But I guess you were kind of accumulating over those months, like you're preparing yourself, right? Building your
Exactly.
your vocabulary and things like that, and then you just, okay, I know this now. I can use
Yeah.
it. Okay, Chris, I have a question. So, do you think that you have a different personality in American and in
Oh,
Spanish?
absolutely.
Yes. Are
I
you an
love this
extrovert in Spanish?
I love this question. Well, actually, you know what? I think that I think in my English personality, if you will, I am rediscovering my extroversion side that was kind of, you know, locked away, if you will, behind
Uh-huh.
my introversion. But now in Spanish, I'm very much an introvert, which is challenging at times because Spanish people and well, I don't want to generalize, but Spanish is very loud. It's very robust. It's very charismatic. It's very, you have to use your body. There's a lot of tonality in it. And so for me, even 6 years into my living here and being in Spanish 24/7, besides like my business and content,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm trying to learn how to be a little bit more extroverted in my Spanish, but I think I still fall back to my comfortable space, my comfort zone, which
Mm-hmm.
is introversion and being
Uh-huh.
able to, speak what I need to say, observe and listen. And yeah, so it's interesting because a lot of my friends who are Spanish watch my content and support me on social media, and they're always like, wow, you speak so differently in English. Like, it's amazing how there's like two of you, if you will. Which I think it's interesting because I think there is in Spain, like it's still, when I speak Spain Spanish, I think there's still some hesitation. I still think that I'm not using the full spectrum of the
Uh-huh.
language to express myself, but in English, I can talk for days, right?
Yes. When you say that, I'm thinking, like literally, I have a picture of the muscle and exercise. Like you kind of exercising your your introversion, or leaning maybe more into extroversion in Spanish.
Yeah, yeah, I need
Kind of
to
stands there.
challenge myself.
Uh-huh. But do you think learning Spanish in general, do you think that it made you more confident as an introvert?
Oh, interesting question. More confident. I think it, yeah, I think Spanish did help me find some confidence because I think that the ability to learn a second language, learn the colloquialism of a second language, learn the cultural nuances of a second language, learn the history behind the words of that second language. I think that's a really great skill. I think that not a lot of people can, do that. And so to be able to like step into that through my introversion and the skills of like observation, listening, and comprehension, empathy, if you will, I think that that has helped me understand like, wow, I do have power. I do have things in my life and in my personality that I can use to better my life, to help me, to support me. So yeah, I would say yes.
Yes, uh-huh. That's amazing. But when you say that, I'm also a bit nosy. I'm thinking, do you think now in Spanish or in English after so many years in Spain? That's like I'm
Well,
like, oh,
interesting. So you know what? I think it's 80% and 20%. 80% I still think in Spanish,
mhm.
but 20% there are times where I find myself thinking in Spanish. I'm like, and I catch myself because it's really surprising. I'm like, wait, what?
Uh-huh.
But no, I think the English side is still very much the one
Strong.
doing the heavy
Yeah.
lifting.
Uh-huh. I'm asking you because I don't know whether it's my brain, but I remember years ago, my Estonian friend when I moved to UK and I was living in London for like 10 years. And I met my
Wow.
friend and she was telling me that, there is this legend about when you're learning a language and then you actually at some point you start when you go to sleep, your dreams are you have dubbing in that language. And I was like, is it true or is it some,
So
made
I
up
have something
story?
to share about that.
Yes, tell me.
I think 4 years into living into Spain, 4 years, I had my first dream in Spanish. And
Cool.
I just felt really proud for that for
So
some
you
weird
had that
reason.
moment. I'm so curious because for me it happened, I
Yeah, I
think,
had it.
within the first year, like in the
Oh,
UK.
first year.
Yes, I had this
Took
chat
me
with
a
my
while.
friend. But I was full on, like, I mean, it was a long process because I was really obsessed with English
Okay.
basically since the age, I don't know, 7 or 8. I was learning many years by myself before I started at school, like middle school. So yeah, I had this, and I was then after this chat with my friend, I was like, wait, is it going to happen or no? What if not? Kind of a little bit like maybe obsession. But now after years, now I'm like upgrading because sometimes, and it's funny because I wouldn't have I don't think I dream in Polish anymore, unless I don't remember. But I sometimes I
Wow.
have a mixture of English, then I have because obviously I speak Russian as well, some Bulgarian, so sometimes I will mix it.
Oh
Last
my
year I started
goodness.
learning Georgian, and I was like, will this happen in my dream? And I think like, I don't know, a few months ago I had this dream. I think I was in Japan. I was speaking English, then some Russian, and then I started seeing like the Georgian letters because they have different alphabet. And I was like, well,
Wow.
What's happening in this brain?
Oh my goodness. It's funny that you mentioned that because I think my English has gotten worse,
It's the
since
thing,
then.
right? That's with my Polish. I sometimes when I speak with my family, because I use it very rarely,
My
and with
English is
some of my
bad.
clients, and I say something, and they look at me, "What? What did you say? Does it
Like,
happen to
wait,
you?"
all the time, and then sometimes I have headaches because I have to, like, translate something from English to Spanish, and just I don't know, my head starts to, like, hurt because
It uses up a lot of energy, doesn't it?
it's trying to use 2 databases at the same time, and it's like
It needs to link. It's like the whole process. It's
overload.
like it needs another software on the IT guy to look at it. So, Chris, I have an extra question. Sorry, the curiosity takes over.
Yeah,
Are you
tell
a
me.
beach person or mountain?
Beach,
Beach.
1000%.
I'm the
Yeah.
typical beach babe. I go to the beach, I tan, I lay there for hours. Or
It's the Angelino in me. I've always lived by the water. I've always seen
uh-huh.
it. I went to college near a beach town in California.
So Spain is the place, right?
You know, I would want to live a little bit closer to the beach because I think
Uh-huh.
an hour drive is too far still. But yeah, the
House on the
southern
beach.
coast of
Mhm.
Spain. One day, yes, I think so.
Ah, Casa on
La
la
casa.
playa, yes.
Yeah.
Chris, so we mentioned at the beginning that your business, you help
Okay.
other people build their businesses, right?
Yes.
But without losing themselves. And I
Yeah.
know a lot of introverts, they tell me that they're losing themselves when they try to speak English or any other language they're learning. So have you ever felt that way, that losing yourself maybe in Spanish or strictly in business?
Yeah. Well, in Spanish, I don't like learning Spanish. I don't think I had to like sacrifice any part of myself. I speak, Spaniards speak a lot faster regularly when they speak Spanish. And when I speak Spanish, I speak at a much slower rate. And that hasn't bothered me. I know that I speak at a slower rate because they've told me, but that hasn't really bothered me. But in business, I think when I was first starting my business, I felt like I did have to sacrifice a lot of my introversion. I felt like it was wrong to be introverted.
Really? Mhm.
Yeah, because I think, I don't know, I don't want to generalize, but for me, when I first was starting my business and I had to market myself, specifically through social media and the internet, my, preconceived notions of that was what I was seeing as a consumer of social media. This was back in 2018, so 2019, sorry, pre-pandemic. And pre-pandemic, it was like Vine videos of like silly things, dancing videos. All of this was obviously much more exponential during the pandemic, right?
Yes.
So that's what I had in my mind. YouTube creators that I used to watch, like Jenna Marbles, for example. All of these people were so high energy. They were bursts of energy. They were extroverted in my mind. So when I started my own business and specific marketing, the marketing aspect of my business back in 2019, and I started on social media, I felt like I had to sacrifice a part of me. I felt like I had to become this actor, if you will,
Mhm.
and, be loud, be funny, have like wide eyes, move a lot. And that quickly, obviously, was not compatible because at one point I got tired of making content because I was not being who I wanted to be. I was having
Mhm.
to put on this persona and act, and that takes a lot of energy.
Running your business, that's not a journey on its own. It's a lot
Yeah,
of
so it
things
was
to
a lot.
learn.
It was really taxing.
So it feels like a lot of pressure, which, as you say, it takes in general for introverts. I'm kind of comparing to speaking English or any language. That it's a lot of that pressure that we need to be like on all the time, speaking all the time. So it
Yeah.
seems what you're saying. It was difficult and challenging, and you had to like really push yourself to in a way to do it right. So
Yeah,
how do
at the
you
beginning.
at the beginning? And so how do you
Yeah.
balance it? Like now, like showing up consistently in your business while you honor your energy as an introvert.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's I love this question because, and anyone listening, I hope can learn from this and not have to spend 4 years of their life trying to figure this out.
Brilliant, yes.
Um,
Mhm. So, Chris, we're waiting for the wisdom. Tell us what we can do.
for me, it was understanding that I cannot compare myself to whatever is out there on the internet already. And when I was creating content, obviously you don't know a lot, right? Besides what you see. So I think it's really, I think it's a natural reaction and response. And as introverts, to observe, to listen, to look at other people, other creators, and see what they're doing. But the problem is when that happens, it's like you're creating based off of somebody else's persona, based off somebody else's journey, based off somebody else's numbers. And so when you realize that you're not being true to who you are and you're trying to replicate, if you will, somebody else's journey, it's not going to work. And I had to go through several periods of burnout, with the last one being last year. I didn't
Mhm.
post anything for 6 months, 6 or 7 months. And it was so because I put myself into this position as an introvert of having to sacrifice that and having to put on this mask. And it was just so exhausting to this. And then, but at one point, through a lot of therapy and self work and a lot of healing in those 6 months, I found that I don't have to subscribe or I don't have to sign up to be that persona because that isn't me. And if I'm going to
Yeah.
have a business, the people that are going to invest in my business, who are going to invest in me, who want to work with me, want to be able to, show up on the call and see the same person they're seeing on the internet. So I'm essentially, lying and not building trust with my
Yes.
potential
Mhm.
customers
Mhm.
by showing up as this fake person. And so it was realizing that I actually have the power to own my introversion and own my story and own my voice and just show up as how I show up on a call with a client. And that is, building that trust even from that first second of the video to all the way to when someone shows up on a call. It's the same Chris. And that way I'm not always giving my energy. I'm not
Yes.
always giving because as introverts, I think we have this much, we have so much of a battery versus extroversion
Mhm.
where I feel like they have a larger battery. So I was giving that all away, video after video after video, because I was putting on a mask and I was having to act as an extrovert. So my battery was drained. And then it was realizing that, okay, wait, why am I giving all of the battery and all of my energy away? Instead, I have to put myself first. I have to fill my battery and be okay with myself to be able to post, to be able to talk to people. And
Yes.
so that's allowed me, after all of that learning and 3 or 4 years into my business, go from posting as this character to going and posting as myself and being able to post every day because now it's not taxing. Now it's not this burnout. I'm not being fake, I'm being myself. And so I'm
Mhm.
able to just share every day. Like if I'm talking to my friends or talking to people, obviously through a business lens, but I'm able, express that way and also bring that to my clients because I think that for my clients, they try to look also at other things and other creators on the internet. And they have to realize that being themselves is the best way to grow a business on social media and grow
Yes.
a
Uh-huh.
following.
And when you say that, because when you were describing something, because you say like you showing even yourself that you can be who you are and your own your story and experience, and what kept on coming to my mind is like that's also showing an example to other people, introverted or extroverted, that or whatever, because there are different circumstances that people can even take it as an inspiration. Oh, Chris is not compromising his own personality or story. So maybe I could actually try that as well and see that I don't have to pretend to be someone else I'm not.
And it works. And I don't want to like guarantee anything, but I can almost guarantee that it's always going to work because people at the end of the day, even though we're using a tool of social media and looking at a screen, at the end of the day, we're still trying to connect with something. And at the base of human connection is being able to know who I'm listening to. And if
Yes.
I can detect something off in that other person, then I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to trust them. So I'm going to pass the video and look at somebody else.
Yes, and
So,
sometimes we can't put our finger on it, but it's just, as you say, the energy feels like something is like out of place
yeah,
in here. I can't put my finger, but it's like something is off.
right.
Mhm. But I also like because you talk about in your business, you talk about being in choice with your business. I really love this idea, and I think it
Yeah.
also applies even to learning a language. So, what do you think, Chris? How can someone learning English or any other foreign language, in your case, you were learning Spanish, or even running a business, how we can make choices that are in line with us and not just following all the noise out there, because we know now with social media, internet, there is
Yes.
so much information, so much noise, so much advice. How we can, what would you say we could try to make out of
So
this? Like, or how do you deal with this in your business? You talk a little bit about this.
absolutely. For me, so I have to be honest, I learned this phrase or this wording from my therapist. We were
Mm-hmm.
doing a session about a year ago, actually. I started with my therapist because I was going through a really rough moment in my life a year ago. And she was like, Chris, you are choosing to be in this moment and you're choosing to react to this moment in this specific way. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, that can transcend into all parts of your life because the way that you choose to respond to something, your responses and your reactions to something aren't necessarily automatic. They are something that you decide. The decision sometimes might feel automatic, but your choice is always something that you have the power. So I think a lot of the times, like I felt in my personal life, that sometimes things were out of my control, right? I came to Spain and I thought I was in control and I knew Spanish. I didn't. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that people would maybe speak English here as a backup. No,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't happen. In my business, I thought I had control of my scripts and being able to use the hooks and the hashtags and what the other quote unquote gurus say to sound smart and apply it to me. No. So I think it was realizing that a lot of things in life are out of control, but what you do have in control of your hands is your choice of your thoughts, your emotions, your perceptions of things, your point of view, your mindset, your attitude, your thoughts. That's what you have choice in. So I think whether you're learning English, you're learning a second language, or you're trying to run a business and trying to live in purpose, I think it's understanding that when you live in choice, you're choosing to live a life that you wanted, or you're choosing to reach a goal that you've always wanted to without necessarily having something or somebody's external expectations of you. I think that is out of your control, an expectation external of you or a validation. A lot of people want their first viral video, but the thing is, you don't need that validation. That's not being in choice. Being in choice is, saying, hey, I thought that was a really good video. I was true to myself. I filled my cup first and I gave something of value. And I feel really good about that. And being able to understand that feeling that's what I'm trying to control. That's what I'm in choice about. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. I
It's
hope.
interesting because when you say that, you say in choice, and what came to my mind is knowledge is power. And I was kind of thinking like choice is also power.
Absolutely. Choice is a
It is
power. Yeah.
whatever you choose,
1000%.
even if sometimes we make bad decisions too, at the end of the day, it's also like you can learn from it, it's
Oh,
experience.
yeah. Oh, I'm glad that you brought that up because you can have good choices and you can have bad choices. I think
Yeah.
that's why being in choice is so powerful because it's also a tool for self-reflection and saying, okay, I chose to feel that way about this thing, can I choose differently the next time? And
Yeah,
how would that
exactly.
change, right?
And learn from your mistakes. And Chris, I know that you're also working on your podcast now. It's the
Yeah.
Beyond the Lights, right? I like
Beyond the
the
light.
title. How is that going? How do you find your journey podcasting as an introvert?
Oh my goodness. My introversion and my podcast and the podcast title, I think go hand in hand. So I love that you asked me that because I've always wanted to start a podcast for years. I think
Wow.
since I started becoming this business coach, content
Mm-hmm.
strategist, personal development,
Yes.
life coach,
Uh-huh.
if you will. I've always wanted to share my ideas in a long form content because I think con of short form content is that you have to say a lot in a really short amount of time. And that in itself can be just exhausting. Just the nature of that is exhausting. So podcast, you have 20 to 30 minutes or even more to really
Mm-hmm.
just talk about nuanced things in a deeper level than you can on social media. So I've always wanted a podcast, but I always kind of put it off because I was choosing to put it off. And I was like, okay, let's go. This year. This year will be it. 2022, 2023. This year will be it. Didn't happen. 2024. This year will be it. Didn't happen. And this year I was like, you know what? Enough. I have to just put it out there. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be cute. It's not going to be, glamorous. But if I don't just go for it and choose to start, it's never going to happen. And I thought of the name Beyond the Likes
Mm-hmm.
because, and that kind of goes back into my introversion, is
Uh-huh.
because
Tell
I
me.
think I think a lot of the times in social media, well, I don't know, from my experience and from the experience that I have had with my clients, they're always looking at math, at the data, at the numbers, at the stats, at
Yes.
the engagement, at the comments. And I think as an introvert, I think that's a little like, I think that's normal because if you think about it, introversion, we're always kind of looking in from this outside view, right?
Yes.
Whereas an extrovert is like very in the moment and trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're always trying to look in. So if we place that framework on top of social media, so as an introvert, I've done a lot. If I'm not being in choice and being true to myself, I'm putting a mask. I've done a lot to produce this. I'm exhausted. I want a reward. I want a
Yes.
prize. Like I
Because
did
I
a lot of
put in
work.
the work. It was hard.
Yeah. Where's my
Mm-hmm.
prize? So you look in, you look at the numbers, you look at the views, you look at the comments, you look at the engagement. And so a lot of the times for my clients, when we first started working together, it was like, I'm not getting the views, I'm not getting the shares, I'm not getting this, I'm not X, Y, and Z. And so for me, that also happened to me too. That's why I can speak about it so well, because when
Yes.
I first started, I was like, what? Why isn't nobody viewing this or liking these, my very first videos?
Mm.
Because I did all of this work, right? And so that's where the podcast name came from because I had to learn that the likes and the comments and the engagement, that is out of my control. I
Yes.
cannot choose to get 2,000 views on a video. What I can choose is that to know that I'm not doing the things that are draining me. So I'm taking away the mask and I'm just being myself. I am sharing my whatever message I want to the best of my ability. And I'm not obsessed with hashtags or trending sounds or the captions or the video cover. I'm just doing it. I'm posting it and I'm showing up. And so the name came from that essentially, being able to understand through like 2 years of social media work. So I hope
Mm-hmm.
this can also help your listeners not pass all of this time to learn this lesson, but to understand that you don't need to rely on the metrics of your content to understand that your story is something unique and something powerful to bring to the table. And so it's
Yes.
looking beyond the metrics, beyond the likes, beyond the comments, beyond the shares and whatnot, to understand that you as a human have value as is because
Yes.
you were
Mm-hmm.
born, you're a being, you're not
Mm-hmm.
doing. So yeah, that's where my
Brilliant.
podcast name came
No, thank exciting. The journey.
from.
It's fun. So,
I
Chris,
love
I don't know if you'd like to answer. We had a question from a previous guest
Okay.
about when did you last laugh and why?
That's a good question. I didn't laugh yesterday.
There is
Um,
another thing. We don't have to do it daily, right? It's nothing wrong with
yeah,
that
I
if we
don't
don't
think
laugh
it's a
daily.
daily thing. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think laughing is all like crying is a way to like let emotions pass through
Mhm.
your body.
Yeah.
I think on a Monday, it was the last time I laughed because I met up with a friend and
Mhm.
we had a coffee and we were catching up and she said something funny. I don't remember what it was at this, but I remember having a good laugh about it.
That's
And
good.
so,
Was your belly hurting as well? This kind of laugh? It's like too much. I already have my abs worked out.
oh my goodness, like a laugh attack. Wow. I haven't had a
Yeah.
laugh attack in a while.
Those are fun.
Yeah, at the beginning. And then you're like, oh, why can't I stop
Yeah.
laughing? It hurts.
I know. And do you have a question for next guest, whoever that will be?
Oh, I do.
Would you
Okay,
like, yes,
so my
well,
question for your next guest is, when is the last time you felt proud of something you did and why?
oh, can I answer as well?
Yeah, okay, go for
I'm
it.
actually proud. You know what? Recently, I stopped reading, as I would say, very clever books because I was always a
Oh,
bookworm and as a kid and in general. But I think last 7-ish years, I was reading a lot about, health, self-development, psychology, learning all the time, analyzing. And I was like wondering recently, I'm really tired. And I decided I need to go back to reading fiction. So I'm really proud that I went to our local bookshop chain in England, Waterstones, and I bought, I think, not lie to you, I think 9 or 10 books. And I also ordered, I think, 2, which are still in printing. So I will get them at some point this year. And I got back
yeah.
to reading fiction. And I'm so proud that I stepped away from learning something. And it's so exciting. So I'm now into reading. I have quite a few titles from Japanese authors, and they're really
Oh,
cool stories. So I'm proud of that. So
can
I
I
kind of
add
step
something to
away from
that?
learning something for books. I just
Yeah.
read for pleasure.
Yeah. Can I add to that really
Yes.
quick? I love so thank you so much for answering. I love that because, I think a lot of the time, like we're sometimes like I think healing is not always our purpose or trying to learn is not our purpose. We're here to live. Living is our purpose. And I
And
think
have fun
to
as well, right?
yeah, fuel our creativity. We need to sometimes just step away from learning or healing or doing like, learning Spanish. For me, it was sometimes just stopping the Duolingo app, stopping learning, and just going out to a party with Spanish people
And
and
just
let
dance, right?
whatever happen happen.
Without speaking.
Exactly. Exactly. Just dance, just listen or try to talk, but it's okay. You laugh about it. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, so Chris, I'm sorry, but when you say when I have this picture, so like no speaking, leave Duolingo for a bit, have a break, go and have fun. I kind of, because I know you used to be a Zumba
Oh,
instructor, right?
yeah.
You still take it to the dance floor? I mean, can you apply when it's only strictly in the gym classes?
Oh gosh, Zumba. Zumba was a moment in my life. I was a Zumba teacher for 5 years,
Wow.
and then I stopped. But I think dance, I think it's so important. Dance gives your body purpose, and I think that a lot of the times we give our mind a lot of purpose and action and tasks and to-do lists, and we forget about our body. And so I think dancing is a way to do that, and that's obviously that started a whole path to working at the gym, doing competitions, and becoming an athlete. But what was curious about becoming a Zumba instructor was having to face my introversion
Wow.
because
You're reading my mind. I wanted to ask you. Oh, how?
I had to like that was such a moment in my life because as a Zumba instructor, as a fitness instructor, you have to motivate the heck out of the class because someone is like 9 out of the 10 people in your class are coming in not wanting to work out.
Yeah, it's the reality.
They're there. They're there because they've been in choice and they were like, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna show up for myself.
Mhm.
1 in 10 are like, yes, I'm here every day, all the time. So it's usually, it's more common for people to not want to be in class. So for me, I had to really step into the role to be a good instructor, fitness instructor. I had to step into the role of being like, okay, wait, I need to motivate the heck out of these people so that they can have a good time, disconnect, and forget about their life because that's what they came here for. But obviously that clashes with introversion because as introversion, like I just want to be quiet. I want to be like reserved. I want to be my shell. I don't want any eyes on me. And
Mhm.
that was the whole opposite in Zumba, right? I had to be loud. I had to have eyes on me constantly. I had to kind of, it kind of like gather people. I have to engage with people, right? So for me, that during Zumba, learning Zumba was kind of my first time as an adult, I think, having to enter into dialogue with
Mhm.
more of the quote unquote negative sides of introversion and
Mhm.
say, hey, you know what? How about you're not loud? So maybe, I had to learn how to gesture a lot better because I
Uh-huh.
couldn't be scream. I'm not a screamer. I had to also put on a smile and understand that during that hour, I wasn't putting on a mask, but I was
Mhm.
putting on like this, I was stepping into my job essentially, right?
The
Which I think
role
is
of your
different
Zumba
from
instructor, no?
yeah, because I think that's different from putting on a mask, because I think when you're putting
Yes.
on a mask, you're trying to protect yourself from something,
Mm,
whether that danger is real or not. You're trying
yeah.
to, but for this, I was like really just stepping into my job and being a responsible person. So I
Maybe
think
getting out of your comfort zone as well.
exactly, you read my mind. So I was able to
Mhm.
get out of my introversion and understand, hey, I can have this duality of being who I am within the scope of my introversion and still quote unquote be like an extrovert, if you will, if that makes sense.
Yes, no, it makes sense perfect. Wow. So it's so interesting. But Chris, I want to kind of bounce your question back to you about
Oh,
because
okay.
I've seen I was, sneaking about at your Instagram. I've seen that you are now into sewing projects. I was like, are you proud of that?
Yes,
Are you
yes.
proud of your sewing projects?
Oh my goodness. Thank you for asking me this because I am so proud that I just one day I chose to go to sign up to a sewing class in my local area. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. If it works out, cool. If it doesn't, I'll look for another hobby. And I think it's one of the proudest things that I've done because I'm like, my classes are 3 hours long. And
Wow.
I'm just there, I'm not doing anything, which I love because running a business is doing everything all the time. So being able to have a moment where I don't have to be productive, I just can be myself
In
or
the moment,
focus
because
on something
probably
that
sound very meditative. I guess you switch off your brain.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's different from working out even because working out, you're kind of having to pay attention or you're having to focus on like your
Mhm.
body and making sure you're moving correctly. But here it's just like, I'm productive for the next 3 hours and that's going to actually help me be productive.
Amazing. So, Chris, will there be a a collection, Chris collection,
Oh my goodness. I hope, yes,
clothing line?
exclusive. Yes.
Yeah, straight from Spain. No, that sounds. I have a sewing machine and I think I did one piece with like tailoring and stuff, but I would like to go back. But it's always like back because my
Yeah.
mom she
Yeah.
was self-taught tailor and sewing, and my grandma as well. And I
Wow.
kind of the same. But I think I did one piece, a dress, and that was it. I have some patterns for trousers, but I haven't touched that yet because it seems quite complicated.
Yeah. It's definitely a learning process.
Yeah, but it's fun. And then
It
the joy
is.
when
It
you can
is.
wear your own piece of clothing
Oh,
that you made it,
that's
priceless.
yeah, yeah,
Wow,
literally.
Chris, thank you for joining today and sharing your story and all the funny stories as well about Zumba and everything. It was so much fun.
Well, thank you so much. I love the conversation. I love your questions, and thank you for yeah, thank you.
Can you relate to my guest story? Let me know in the comments. If you liked this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends or anyone who might find it helpful on their own journey to embrace their quiet personality. I'm here to help you with English learning, whether you want to connect with others or turn your dreams into reality. If you'd like to leave a review, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the show. It will help me reach more people like us. And don't forget to check out my Instagram at linguistic.adventurer for more tips on learning English or to ask about my one-to-one classes or group courses. Thanks for listening, and until next time.